Shalom Yesharala. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rucha Kodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to those Akim that's preached the word in all truth and sincerity, along to Israelite foreigner brothers that like the heathens, but the line of outside goes back to the nation of Israel. Which nation of Israel are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans through the prophecies and curses of Deuteronomy 28 chapter and throughout the Bible. So this is a brother you call Amon putting the video, and today's video will be entitled "The Lord Sees Everything." I'm just gonna go on some precepts and Lord willing, you brothers and you few sisters out there be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Shai. The Lord sees everything, because, all men and women actions on the earth are being recorded by the angels, because the angels are the Heavenly Father Yahweh's eyes, and when you go in Proverbs 15 and verse 3, it says, the eyes of the Lord Yahweh are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. That's right. And we know that the eyes of the Lord are the angels, because the angels go to and fro on the earth, beholding the evil and the good. So, the angels, they record the good, the good works, which is what we're doing, beginning with our apostles. It was a great millstone in regards of teaching the gospel, going out on the highways and byways week in, week out, pushing his word, being consistent, having faith, praying, all those are good works. But the evil works are, adultery, murder, theft, fraud, so on and so forth, and the scriptures, when you go on Sirach 23 in the Apocrypha, and verse 18, it says, a man that breaketh wedlock. Now, breaketh wedlock, it means breaketh wedlock is an archaic phrase that specifically means to commit adultery. It refers to a married person engaging in sexual relations outside of their marriage, right? We know according to law, adultery is a sin punishable unto death. And let's just get that real quick. I'm gonna come right back to this, but it's one of Leviticus 20 and 13, and it reads, "If a man also lie with mankind, it's like I haven't been to that scripture in a while. Let's see, adultery. Now, I used to know that precept. Okay, Leviticus 20 and 10. Yep, Leviticus 20 and 10. It says, in a man that committed adultery with another man's wife, even he that committed adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer, which will be the man, and adulteress, which will be the woman, shall be surely be put to death. That's right. So adultery is very evil and wicked, man. You taking another man's wife, and you going into her, that's evil. Behind his back, behind your fellow Israelite neighbor's back, and that's wicked, man. And adultery is pushed out heavy here in America. Adultery, like my brother Yawasop, often says adultery is legal here because there's no judgment on it. When you go to going back to Sirach 23:18, it says, "A man that breaketh wedlock, saying thus in his heart and his mind, Who seeth me? I am compassed about with darkness. The walls cover me, and nobody seeth me. What need I to fear? The Most High will not remember my sins." And this is a very prideful mindset. This is a very prideful mindset and bold as well. Because, you can, man may not see you do it. You might be very sneaky. You might be very successful in being sneaky on adultery. But as the scripture gonna say in the next verse in 19, such a man only feareth the eyes of men. See, a lot of people on earth only fear the eyes of men. They fear the repercussions of what they will suffer if they were caught by men or women. But beginning with the men of the wicked actions, it says, "And knoweth not that the eyes of the Lord Yahweh Shemon Shai are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of men and considering the most secret parts." See, that's right. So no one gets away. No one can hide, man. No one, not us, no one, man. So the Lord's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of men. So no one gets away with their wickedness, man. And that's why we just need mercy, because ultimately we got sins in this lifetime and our past life and our future sins that we're going to commit. So that's why we don't know what we did in our past life, but that's why we just need mercy from Yahweh Shemon Shai, so all our transgressions can be blocked out before his face. It says, verse 20, he knew all things ever they were created, so also all they were perfected, he looked upon them all. This man shall be punished in the streets of the city, and where he suspected not, he shall be taken. Right, because going back to the law, they were both supposed to be stoned. And that judgment was displayed in the public, so all Israel can see and fear. Because who wants to get stoned, man? Getting stoned is a very painful and slow death, man. People throwing big ass stones at your head. They will cover your shoulders. They'll put you like in a pit and cover it. I'm assuming with like dirt and stuff, to the point you can't move, and only your head is out, and then people just stoning you. Picking up big rocks, boulders, and just throwing them at your head, man. That's the gruesome death. But reason why that death was so gruesome, because that sin was so great. The Lord hates adultery, man. And adultery is very, very evil and wicked, man. And a lot of jakes in the world love sleep with another man's woman. It says, verse 22, it says, "This shall go also with the wife that leave her husband and bring it in an heir by another." Yeah, so the wife gonna be stoned as well. No respect of person, man, because we live in today's day when the woman is always being spared, when they deserve righteous judgment. But in our law and our customs, the woman, they got judged too. It wasn't just a man. The woman got judged too, man. But in this society, Esau made it to most of these men here in America have a soft spot for women. And that wasn't the case in the ancient world, man. But it says, for first she had disobeyed, and it says she brought in an heir by another. Yeah, she brought in another heir by another man. That's evil, man. because a woman's supposed to only have one man her whole life. You know, it says, verse 23, for first she had disobeyed the law of the Most High, yet right, which is, committing adultery. And secondly, she had trespassed against her own husband. She played the harlot and she was unfaithful. And thirdly, she had played the whore in adultery and brought children by another man. So those are grievous sins right there, man, that the Lord will judge you for. It says, she shall be brought out into congregation, and inquisition shall be made of her children. Yeah, find out what they're gonna do with the children after she get, stoned. Because it's not the child's fault, even though it's the counsel and the Lord can judge the child for the adultery. For example, what happened with King David, Bathsheba, the Lord ended up killing that baby. So there, sometimes the Lord can judge it's like it can judge the woman. I mean, judge the child. It's like it, if he wants to, you know. But it's not the child's fault that you know, that they were conceived in adultery. That's the parents' fault. But the Lord can judge that child if he wants to. Verse 25, her children shall not take root, and her branches shall not bring no fruit, right? Because sometimes a baby can end up having Down syndrome, or it can come out as a stillborn, So the Lord can, once again, the Lord can judge a child for the act of adultery, if he wants to. You see? It says, verse 26, she shall leave her memory to be cursed, and her reproach shall not be blotted out. Yes, so she gonna have a evil name. She gonna get stoned, and she gonna have an evil name, and it's gonna be remembered amongst our people that, man, you remember such and such, man? Yeah, she had a man, she had a husband, and she stepped out, she committed adultery on him, and she got stoned, and now her child, is a orphan. It's like it is an orphan. So adultery is very evil, man, and not just one sin. And this is the last one I'm gonna get, because I don't have that many precepts, but I want to go into this scripture real quick, Ecclesiastes 5:8, because this is another thing that the Lord sees as well. What Esau is doing. And the Lord does not like what Esau is doing, ruling the whole world of wickedness and oppressing his people, the poor, the Israelites. Us Israelites, it says, if thou seest the oppression of the poor and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter, meaning don't be surprised. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. Yeah. And I just looked up what ChatGPT said about this scripture. I hate when that happen, man. Ecclesiastes 5:8. Was 8? Yeah. Okay, so as it says right here, this verse addresses the reality of corrupt governments and injustice. And we are living in a system where there's a corrupt government and injustice. Justice, righteous judgment doesn't go forth here, man, because Esau, he doesn't judge according to the law, statutes, commandments. He judges according to his constitutions, which is really which was really made for him to prosper in this system. It says hear what it means. It says, if thou see the oppression of the poor, Solomon acknowledges that the poor are often mistreated and denied justice, and that's correct. Because Esau has a respect of persons when it comes to this justice system. It could be an Edomite For example, Edomite and Jake can do the same exact crime, but Esau will get a slap on the wrist, get a light sentence, where Jake will give a heavy sentence, a very heavy sentence, you know? So Esau, he has, and there's been many accounts of that, man, and not justifying Jacob as wickedness because he's wicked, what he did, the crime, you know, but still the fact that, you know, this justice system is not true justice, man. It says, marvel not at the matter. Don't be shocked that this happens in a fallen world. Corruption in human governments is sadly common. And right? For he that is higher than the highest regardless. So the phrase has two common interpretations. It refers to layers of human authority. One official answers to another, and corruption can exist through the system. Right, because, you know, they're able to pay people off and, you know, push certain narratives to bail them out, you know. So it's corruption amongst the system, the justice system. Many Christian interpreters also see and imply reminded that God is the highest authority, which is correct, who can see every act of injustice and will ultimately judge it. The main lesson is that God is not unaware of injustice. Yeah, because the Lord, going back to the title lesson, the Lord sees everything. So that's why the Lord's going to ultimately, you know, bring justice and judgment in the earth, as the scriptures say. Even when earthly systems fail, nothing escapes his notice, and his justice will ultimately prevail. This fits with the broader message of Ecclesiastes. Life in this fallen world often seems unfair, but people should continue to fear God and trust him, because he sees what human rulers do and will judge all things in his time. Yeah, so that's why we put all our full hope and trust in Yahweh Shemon Shah, because we know Esau don't play fair. We know he going to come down with great wrath. You know, we know he going to bring up false accusations upon us. But that's why, you know, we got to be blameless as in the sight of Yahweh Shemon Shah, and the Lord's going to vindicate us, man. He's going to justify us. And he's going to judge, he's going to justify the righteous and condemn the wicked, man. You know? So, and I just end off on that precept since I quoted it, being blameless. This is 2 Peter 3:14. It says, wherefore, beloved, talking about the elect, the nation of Israel, the house of David, seeing that you look for such things, be diligent that you may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless. Yeah, so we got to be blameless. Of course, we're going to have sins upon us, but blameless in the sense of, you know, we not committing crimes out here, because Esau going to come. It's going to come, man. You know, he gonna say we murderers, we're grapists, you know, we're the P word, the PEDO word, which we're not. You know, so all the accusations that Esau placed upon us, none of them can be true. You know, and when and by Esau's false accusations being false, you know, that will open us up to be blameless in the sight of Yahweh Shemon Shah, and he gonna justify us, man, Lord willing, part of the elect. And he gonna condemn these Edomites when he bring judgment upon them, and these people too, because these people of the world, they're gonna believe everything Esau gonna say when that persecution come, man, because they hate us. So we already count that loss, that 2/3 of our people, they're gonna be with Esau, join hand in hand with him, and persecuting us, man. But we got the victory, Hakim. You know, so you cast all our burdens upon the Lord, he going to sustain us. He going to look out for us, you know, and protect us, man. So yeah, I just want to make a lesson on that. You know, Lord willing, I was edified. And until next time, Shalom.